Hello everyone, Insomnia from UnrealTek.net. Welcome to another video in the UE4 C++ course. This video is called Source Control, setting up source control with Git and GitHub. We will be looking at why to use source control and how to set it up, and we'll be doing our first test commit. Why use source control, also known as SCC? Well, it gives you online access. All your files, binary and otherwise, will be online at all times, available just to you or to the public in the case of open source. You can revert to any revision. So if you make some changes, you decide, oh, this is total crap, I can't fix it, or I don't want to fix it, you can go back to where you made a recent revision, and it keeps a copy of every file at every state that you upload, so that you can go back at any time. You can keep notes of changes every time you make a commit, which is uploading new files, new versions of files. It asks for a change note. That is notes that you can keep for the future so that you can see what's going on. Other people can see how things are proceeding. We'll learn how to work in a team setting much better. Every team uses some form of source control, whether it's Git, Mercurial, SVN, Perforce, etc. And it's used in almost every studio, so that is just a good thing to know. It's an industry standard and it's used in the open source community hugely, and it's just a good workflow to know the whole process of uploading new files with a revision change. Today we're going to set up the Git client, get it installed. We're going to make sure we have a GitHub account. We're going to set up a new repo, which is short for repository. That's where your files are held. We're going to create a Git Ignore file. We're going to use an automatic one, but we're going to look at it in a little bit of detail. What is a .git ignore? Well, it's a small text file that tells Git which files you want to ignore. So files that are large, that you don't want on Git, that are generated locally. And we're going to do our first test commit. We're going to upload a README or a text file or something just to make sure it's working. With that said, remember our motto, create your way, and let's get started. To begin, if you go to the git-scm.com webpage, it tells you a little bit about it. There's some documentation, there's downloads. If you want to work on the command line, they do have the Git client if you want to learn the command line. But what I suggest for people new to the system, and I just suggest in general, is to download the GitHub desktop client. I have it open. It's nice and clean. It's very easy to use. We'll be adding our new repository in here. We'll be cloning it from online. You can see some of mine in here. So you can clone it directly on your computer. You can add one that you've created on your computer, or you can create one just from here. It's just nice and clean. And once we get going, you'll see how useful it is. So I suggest downloading and installing that. You can see here, you can see your revision changes, you can see your revision log, what branch you're on. That's another good thing about source control, is allowing branching. With that said, go ahead to the GitHub website, github.com. Make sure you have an account, so just do a sign up and create an account and you will be welcomed to this page. So what we're going to want to do is go to the plus button and hit new repository, and that will bring you to this page, create a new repository. So you will be the owner, obviously, and give it a name you can remember. A description is completely optional. You can make it public so everyone can see it, or private so only you and people that you decide can see it. And check off initialize this repository with a README. That'll just give us a file that we can use to get it on our computer initially and set it all up. And we want to add a Git Ignore. Hit add Git Ignore and search for Unreal Engine, one word, and then check Unreal Engine. Well, and you can choose a license. I've picked the GNU public license 3.0, which is very common. Then just hit create repository and it will give us a new repo. You'll see we have a Git Ignore file, so we can click on it to view it, and you'll see it's ignoring the Visual Studio folder. It's ignoring compiled object files, pre-compiled headers, Xcode, and Visual Studio project files, binaries, build, saved, intermediate. Those are all locally generated folders from Unreal Engine. This basically covers it all. That's everything that you don't need on the internet. That's what can be generated locally, and we'll edit this as time goes on, but it's a very good starting point. If you forgot to do this, you can create a new repository and make sure to add that Git Ignore. Or you can go to github.com/insomnia/UE4CPP course, and then you can find the .git ignore there. It also generates a license. If you've picked a license, that just tells you what the license is, and a readme.md. Now, MD is just Markdown. So if you hit the edit button, it's in Markdown. Pound is the title, a double pound is heading 2, the repository details. This repo holds all source files for the UnrealTek.net C++ course from YouTube. And so that's kind of how Markdown works in a very short nutshell. We're not going to get into it. Now, this is where we need to learn something. It's asking for a commit change because we're updating the readme.md. So we're going to say readme.md first draft example for Markdown and readme.md commit, as well as our first official manual commit. And you can commit directly to the master branch, which you're going to do most of the time, or you can create a new branch if you want to go ahead and do that branching behavior I described, but we were not going to get into too much detail. So commit your changes and you'll see that this is a new file now. So if we go back to our main one, you'll see we now have 2 commits, and if we click on that link, you'll see we have our revision history. So our initial commit was the automatic one, and this was our first one. And if you click on the ... you'll see our change. And if you click on this little chevron, you can then go to that point in history and see what the files were like back then. So if I go to the first one, this shows me what it was like back then. You'll notice the readme.md is the original one. And at any time you just hit back to master and you're back to where we are. So we are good to go to get it on our computers. All you need to do is hit the clone or download button and copy the URL. There's the button here to copy it to clipboard. Hit the plus sign. We're going to clone, and we're going to go here and we're going to find our course and we're going to clone it. And the directory we want to clone it to is the workspace that we created, UnrealTek CPP course repository. So we're going to clone it there. So it'll download all the files in the repository, and then it'll be in here and you can see all those details nicely set up. So this is what's known as a file diff. So this shows you in green what was added, a little plus symbol beside each line shows what was added in a text file. If it's red, that means it was deleted. If it's yellow, that means that there was changes. So you'll see more of that in the future. We might go over it, but that's just what that means. And you can click on any commit and see what it looked like at that time. At any time, you can sync to get anything from offline and submit files to online. So let's do our first offline to online commit. So let's go into our folder where we cloned it. You'll notice it's got all those files from online. So all we need to do is just do a test. So we'll create a new text document. We're just going to call this test. If you'll see the changes has the little blue dot, which means there's a new change. So we're going to click on that, and it says that there's a new file called test, and it says file was added. So summary, we added file test. That's the title, the description, added a no extension file called test to test our GitHub Git setup. So we're going to commit to master. Now master is the branch. If you have multiple branches, it'll let you choose a branch. Created commit, you can see we can undo that, we can revert. We won't get into that right now. So if we go back to our history, you'll see that we now have 3. If we sync it, you can see we're 1 behind. We gotta have the blue dot synced up. So it's uploading those files to the server. There we go. So it popped up. It's done. If we give a refresh online, we now have 3 commits. So the last one was added file test. So that's working online, offline. We can create a new file here. We can upload files and get them in the desktop client. We can work in the desktop client, and then we can add new changes, delete files, so on and so forth, and we can sync them. If you edit a file or delete it, it will show up. You can see test was now deleted, so we can go deleted or deletion test, deleted test file to see how deleting works. You can commit that. You can also undo that, and if we were to edit it, just editing into the background, so now it's 1 KB in size. You'll see it now has a changed symbol, but we're gonna delete it to get rid of it. So deleted the test file. We're gonna commit to master, and then we're gonna sync. So I just want to add I suggest if you have no programming experience to at least do the JavaScript or Python course on Codecademy. It's totally interactive and just a good way to get some basic programming knowledge. It's not required, but I do suggest it before we get into the next video, which will be setting up Visual Studio. So again, you can read the setting up Visual Studio for UE4 and you can download it from visualstudio.com. Just Google Visual Studio Community and download Community 2015. It's totally free. It's got all the features you need, and you will want to install C++, or rather Visual C++ programming language. And if you're not on Windows 10, you'll need the Windows 8.1/Windows Phone SDK, so search for those. And you might also want to add the GitHub plugin, which will allow you to commit directly, but we'll probably just use the client manually. So you can install those beforehand, but we'll be doing that in the next video to come. That is all for now, I think. So remember our motto, create your way, and we'll see you next time.